fellow YouTubers. I'm Bill McFadden from Tone Pure Music. In this video, we'll discuss the methodology behind John Williams composing Princess Leia's theme. He used a chord sequence that was different from your common 1 through 7 Roman numeral system. We'll discuss the chord sequence he did use and how it differs. And we'll discuss the chords and the scales and the modes that he used. He primarily used the major mode and the ascending melodic minor, as well as the Dorian mode in several of the phrases. And by breaking his composition down, we'll understand his thinking when writing melodies and composing melodies. So we'll start with a simple piano arrangement that I wrote that accompanies Princess Leia's theme. Okay, so here we have the chord structure of Princess Leia's theme. And as you can see, the first chord we have is the D major chord that he uses. Then he goes to a G minor chord. Now, notice in the D major scale, we have two sharps. It's written in two sharps. And normally when you go to the 4 chord, it's a major chord. So he has the relative, or we should say the parallel minor of the G major chord. So we're actually breaking a rule right there from your standard 1 through 7 Roman numerals. So we're going from the 1 to the minor 4. Back to the 1, back to the minor 4. And then here's another unusual thing he does. We now have the flat 2. So in the key of D, the second is E. So the flat 2 is E flat. And he uses the major 7th. And then he goes to the C minor, which is the minor of the 7th scale. Normally the 7 chord is a half diminished chord. So when you go up, so when the 7, which is C sharp, if you form that triad, you get the half diminished. So there's your normal 7, right? So instead of using the 7 half diminished, he actually uses the 7 minor, which is very unusual, okay? And then he goes to the flat 2 again, but this time instead of an E flat major, as he did in measure 4, or actually measure 5, he goes to an E flat minor. So again, a little unorthodox, but this, the sound of the melody speaks for itself. Very beautiful. Then after that, he goes to not the 6th chord, but the flat 6 chord, which is B flat, the flat 6 major B flat. Then he goes back to the 4, which we saw in measure 2 and measure 4. And then he goes to the 5, which is a very common chord, giving you a cadence, the authentic cadence going back to the 1. So it resolves. So if we just go through the chord sequence, we have the D to the G minor, D to the G minor, then the E flat, major 7, then to the C sharp minor, Sort of unusual sounding there. And then the E flat minor to the B flat, then to the G minor, to the A, and then back to the D. Now let's take a look at the scales, and we'll also take a look at the melody. Okay, so here we have the melody, and the first chord, as you'll remember, was the D major chord, and the scale he's using is the D major scale. So the notes, actually the A is the fifth, and the F sharp is the third of the D major chord. Then it goes to the G minor. So how do we know what scale that is when we in the G minor? Well, we're using G and we're using F sharp. So the scale that fits that is the G minor the ascending melodic minor of the G scale. So basically the G major scale would just be, so we're flatting the third, and that's all we're doing, and we're going up. So the ascending melodic minor. So back to the beginning. So we're still on that G minor. And now we switch to the A flat. So the scale there is just the E flat major. And he's really only using the fifth of the E chord. So he's using chord tones there. Then we come into the C sharp minor. Now here, the scale that works with that is the C sharp Dorian mode, because it has the same key signature a whole tone down, which is B. So we're using the same notes as the B scale, the B major scale. But we're just starting from C sharp. So that gives you the Dorian mode. So starting from the E flat, so in measure 7, he's still using the same harmony there, the C sharp minor chord. And then when he hits the G flat, he's in the E flat minor. And then here's your B major. And then we go to the G minor. Now this time, notice we have an F natural, not an F sharp. So we're actually in the G Dorian mode, which has the same scale as the F scale. One flat. But we just start on G, so that's G Dorian. So pretty much he's used the chords we previously discussed right here in writing the melody and using the scales that we discussed. So here he's using the D major, here he's using the G ascending melodic minor. Then D major again, G ascending melodic minor, E flat major scale. Here he's using the Dorian mode, C sharp Dorian. The E flat minor, let's take a look at that one briefly. We're actually using the E flat Dorian mode there as well, because if you go down a whole tone, you get the D major scale, which is all black keys except for the F and C. So we have the the E flat Dorian, and then we go to B flat major there. And then the G minor Dorian, the G Dorian mode there. Then the A major, and then back to the D major. So that wraps up this video. We've shown the melody, how the scales, the modes, and also the chord structure, which is very interesting, how we deviate from your normal 1 through 7. Normally, you start with a 1 in a major scale, and the 2 is minor, and the 3 is minor, and the 4 is major. But here he has the 4 as being minor in both cases. And he also deviates because instead of using the 2, which is normally minor, he uses the flat 2 in major. And then he has a 2 again, but it's minor, but it's a flat 2. And then he also has the flat 6, which normally in the major scale, your 6 is a minor chord, and it's not flatted. It's just the 6th note of the scale. And also the deviation here, where instead of using the 7 chord half diminished in a major scale, which is normally the way it is, he used the 7 minor. So both the half diminished and the minor are minor chords. But he, instead of using the half diminished, which basically for a C sharp minor chord, you have C sharp E and A flat, or D flat E and A flat. And then in the diminished, you just have the G. So C sharp, E, and then G. But here it's G sharp or A flat. So interesting the way he deviates, and the beauty of the melody that follows that deviation. So these are ideas that you can use in your compositions, and it'll make it more interesting. And if you practice those scales and those modes that are associated with those chords, you can come up with similar kinds of melodies with some work. So this is Bill McFadden signing off from Tone Pure Music. If you like this video, please click like. If you want to be notified of an upcoming video and don't want to miss them, then please subscribe. So Bill McFadden signing off.